many people would look at, let's say, the next 20, 30 years and say, well, this is the beginnings of Armageddon, and it's going to be the end of history, and humanity cannot save itself. What will save humanity is the intervention of some divine process or deity. I feel, on the other hand, that we're intended to save ourselves, to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps, to become a self-organizing planetary society.
Keep watching to learn more. You can now download all 9 copies of the New Thinking Aloud magazine for free, or order beautiful printed copies. Go to newthinkingaloud.org. New Thinking Aloud is presented by the California Institute for Human Science, a fully accredited university offering distant learning graduate degrees that focus on mind, body, and spirit. The topics that we cover here. We are particularly excited to announce new degrees emphasizing parapsychology and the paranormal. Visit their website at cihs.edu.
Book 4 in the New Thinking Aloud dialogue series is Charles T. Tart, 70 Years of Exploring Consciousness and Parapsychology, now available on Amazon.
Thinking Aloud. Conversations on the leading edge of knowledge and discovery with psychologist Jeffrey Mishlove.
Hello and welcome. I'm Jeffrey Mishlove. Our topic today is the future evolution of culture and consciousness. With me is Duane Elgin, who holds an MBA degree from Wharton Business School, a master's degree in economic history from the University of Pennsylvania. Duane served as a senior social scientist at SRI International, where he co-authored the classic Changing Images of Man report with such scholars as Joseph Campbell. He's also the author of another classic called Voluntary Simplicity, and most recently, Awakening Earth. Welcome, Duane.
Good to be here.
It's a pleasure to be with you. When you look at the future evolution of humanity, you use the model of the known stages of development of a human being, don't you?
A lot of times when I give a talk, when I talk to people, I ask them, before giving a talk, I ask them to tell me where we are as a species. Are we in our infancy? Are we toddlers? Are we in our early adolescence as a species? Are we maybe in our initial maturity or late middle ages? And it's surprising that what I find is overwhelmingly people think, as a species, we're somewhere in our teenage years. We're really addicted to, sex, glamour, fast cars, materialism, and all of those sort of teenage attributes. And people recognize that we have a lot of maturing to do as a species, but that we're no longer infants. We've come a long ways in the last 35,000 years or so since we were awakening hunter-gatherers, and we're about halfway through, perhaps, an evolutionary cycle.
In other words, 35,000 years in the history of the human race might somehow be equivalent to 18 or 19 years in the life of a human being.
That's right. That's right. And we have a long ways to go before we really reach our initial maturity, where we can live in the world without trashing the planet and the ecosystem of the planet, where we can get along with one another without, resorting to war and violence and so on, living together as mature adults. So that's a possibility, and we need to see that as a species, we aren't going to be forever trapped in our adolescence, in our teenage years. We have a real opportunity to mature into a new level of identity and responsibility.
Well, often when you look at the life of an individual, biographers note that there are certain times of crisis that tend to shape the character of a person. And it would seem that as a species, we've been through crises and are continuing to enter into crises, predictable crises. As a social scientist, seem pretty obvious, I suppose.
I do think we evolved through crises. Certainly when we moved from hunter-gatherers into the agrarian era, that was marked by the rise of warfare. The first large-scale armies and warfare came right along with the priesthood and with the wheel and astronomy and writing and all the rest. So that was a crisis of birth of a new consciousness and a new kind of human culture. As we evolved then from the agrarian era into the industrial era, that was another crisis. Enormous amount of pollution, enormous amount of oppression of people and such. And then the democratic revolution came along with that. And now we're seeing another time of crisis, another time of challenge. This time it's involving the entire planet. We're pushing up against the limits of the Earth's resources and its ecosystem to carry the burden of humanity. So once again, we learn through crisis, we learn through making mistakes, and I think humanity is good at making mistakes, but also learning. So I see a time of crisis emerging, but I see a learning process and a very positive future ahead as we move through these stages of crisis and learning.
It's interesting because surely anybody can see that our non-renewable resources are running out. Maybe not in the next 5 years, but in the next 50. At the same time, we are developing new ways of communicating, new ways of understanding the many different cultures across the whole planet. It's as if the opportunities for interaction amongst all the billions of members of the human species have never been greater and are continuing to grow.
Indeed. My summary assessment of what's in store for us, for the majority of people that are alive today, in the next 20 or 30 years, they're going to see the convergence of two sets of trends. One set I call adversity trends. The other set of trends I call opportunity trends. The adversity trends are material trends. We're going to add another 3 billion people to the planet. We're going to be using up all of the available cheap oil on the planet. Not all of the oil, but all of the cheap oil is going to be gone. That cheap oil runs not only cars, it also provides pesticides and insecticides for a high productivity agriculture. So with those additional people, with those declining resources, and with a climate changing, with global warming, we are facing a time of extraordinary adversity that we've never faced before as a species at a planetary scale. At the same time, here we have television and the opportunity to communicate. Alexis de Tocqueville said that the power of a newspaper was to take a single idea, to put it into 10,000 minds all in the same day. The power of television is to take a single idea, to put it into 10 million, 100 million, maybe 1 billion minds all at the same instant. So with television, we have this communications opportunity colliding with material adversity. That collision, I think, will happen in the 2020s, roughly. And at that point, we're going to see genuinely the awakening of the social brain of the species. We're going to see, in effect, the emergence of reflective consciousness, a witnessing consciousness for the species, and the emergence of a new kind of global human culture. This is an exciting and pivotal time for the planet.
Well, let's return to the analogy we began with. If the human race is at the stage of evolution comparable to being a teenager, what can we expect as we mature?
I think the next stage that we're moving into, we've gone from the agrarian era and the industrial era, and now we're moving into an era that I feel is characterized by communication and reconciliation. If we're going to build a sustainable future for the planet where we don't just destroy the ecosystem, it's going to take unprecedented communication among the species and reconciliation. Just think of all the ways we're divided right now. We're divided racially, ethnically. Look at what's happening in Sarajevo and Bosnia. We're divided by gender. The sexes in many ways are still at war with one another. We're divided generationally, the young against the old, by income, the north and the south hemispheres of the planet. We're divided by species. There are all of these divisions that have to be overcome if we're actually going to reconcile ourselves to live together sustainably on this planet. So the very next stage is one of communication and reconciliation. After that can come the future that I think that many people are looking towards, a future more of community, of bonding, of compassion, and actually building a sustainable future for the planet.
Well, you use the term reconciliation. It has a legal ring to it.
Yeah.
And yet when you talk about among species, it seems to evoke in me more of a sense of oneness, almost a mystical edge.
It's forgiveness. It's reconciliation. Another way of describing that is forgiveness. We have to forgive the wrongs of the past so we can move ahead to a more creative and productive future. And to the extent that we're locked into blaming people and racially and ethnically and gender-wise and so on, blaming people about the past, we can't free ourselves up and think creatively and productively about a sustainable future. So forgiveness is another way of talking about reconciliation.
And so your forecast for the future of humanity is that we will begin to forgive each other.
We must. Do or die. It's like an alcoholic that says, either I come to terms with my addiction, in our case as a species, our addiction to materialism, or we destroy the ecological foundations of the planet. Now, an alcoholic doesn't have to necessarily lose the family, lose the house, lose the job, and so on, lose one's health. But many times an alcoholic has to hit bottom before they're ready then to move ahead. And I think as a species, we learn through adversity, and we're about to face some of the most compelling and fierce adversity that humanity has ever confronted.
In other words, you're saying we're about to hit bottom.
You bet. And we're going to learn from that, and out of that learning, hopefully will come compassion. Out of the compassion will come forgiveness, and out of the forgiveness will come genuinely a sustainable future.
I mean, there are those who would say that we hit bottom in the first half of the 20th century with the two world wars, and you're suggesting that maybe it's yet to come in the next century.
Indeed.
We haven't yet, even with the massive catastrophes that those wars involve, with millions and tens of millions of lives lost, that we can expect worse yet to come.
That's right. I can imagine, as awful as it is, that we will encounter a situation, say with global warming, with 3 billion more people on the planet, say in the 2020s, that we will encounter a situation where instead of millions of people being at risk like there are now, perhaps in Somalia, starving to death, there could be billions of people at risk of starvation. At that point, we could well see not just millions, but potentially billions of people trying to migrate into resource-favored areas like the United States, into Europe and other parts of the world where there are resources. At that point, we're going to see probably the collapse of many democratic societies as they try to cope with global unrest. And all of this is going to be televised in a way that we just can barely imagine with the television systems we have now. And it will be an extraordinary time of conflict and crisis, I feel, for the species. And we're either going to just collapse the ecological foundations for the planet, or we're going to move through a time of forgiveness and reconciliation and transcend that and move ahead.
You know, Duane, I am struck by the fact that you're describing almost unimaginable horrors and smiling at the same time, and I think it's related somehow to the larger vision that you have of the future of humanity beyond this crisis point.
Yeah, I have an optimistic view. I have a positive view of humanity's future. I feel that we've already discussed an era of communication and reconciliation, and beyond that, an era of bonding and building a compassionate future with community and family for the species. And then beyond that, I see that we're going to begin to liberate our creativity as a species. There are all of these stages, just like for the human being. If you just look at a teenager and say, my goodness, if this is all the further this being can mature, we're in trouble. Well, and that's how we are as a species. But we have a lot of evolutionary potential yet to unfold. And I feel very positive about that potential. And we have a lot of choice. It's our choice. It's our future. We can choose it and create it any way that we want. We have the tools of mass communication to come to a level of forgiveness and reconciliation if we want. So I feel like it's up to us.
Now, you write about the guidance that humanity can receive from the spiritual traditions of the world.
Well, I think that's very, very basic, that if we're going to find a way to come together as a species, we have to reach into the deepest wisdom that we share, that we commonly share as a species. And that wisdom has been called the perennial philosophy. The perennial wisdom is found through the ages and across cultures. And it's the understanding that beyond the differences that are very obvious in race and ethnicity and geography and income and so on, there's something deeper that we all share. And that deeper domain that is shared, perhaps in the quantum reality and such, that deeper domain is a domain of spirit, a domain of the life force that animates all that exists. And it's out of that common ground, that common place of meeting, that we can transcend the differences that divide us and find a place of forgiveness and reconciliation. And then a sustainable future.
It's as if you're looking at the great spiritual role models of humanity, people who have attained a status of saintliness, and suggesting that humanity could move in that direction.
Well, possibly. Yeah, I like, there's a story about the Buddha when he first became, so to speak, enlightened. And he had been meditating for many years with some fellow monks there in the forest. And after becoming enlightened, so to speak, these monks came up to the Buddha. They saw the radiance of his being, and they looked at him, and they asked him, who are you now? Are you a god? And he said, no, I'm not. And they said, well, are you a saint? And he said, no. And they still saw this very striking radiance. And they said, well, then what are you? And he said, I'm awake. And I don't think we're not going to become saints. We're not going to become gods. We're simply going to become awake to the miracle of reality as it now exists and the evolutionary potentials that are before us.
Yet there are other spiritual traditions that talk about, different alternative futures for humanity. Armageddon, for example.
Well, indeed there are. And this is a democratic universe with many different views of what we're doing here. And I know many people would look at, let's say, the next 20, 30 years and say, well, this is the beginnings of Armageddon, and it's going to be the end of history, and humanity cannot save itself. What will save humanity is the intervention of some divine process or deity. I feel, on the other hand, that we're intended to save ourselves, to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps, to become a self-organizing planetary society, to guide ourselves as a species. We're born with enormous freedom. I think the suffering that we have here on this planet is born out of that freedom. And out of that freedom comes responsibility. So I agree, there are many different views of what we're about here, and that's part of the conversation that we need to have underway.
Well, when you refer to the perennial philosophy, you seem to be suggesting that the way that you see is one that can be found in every culture, in every religion. That it's not as if your view is, say, uniquely Buddhist.
Oh, not at all. No, every tradition in the world says that underneath the apparent division of materiality and such, there is a deeper unity. And it's that deeper unity that really inspires my sense that we can find this forgiveness, the sense of wholeness, the bondedness, where we can actually work together as a species. So that's basic to my optimism.
Part of your philosophy also includes the concept, I guess you would call it, of continuous creation. It's as if the world wasn't created once with the Book of Genesis or with the Big Bang, but that it's a participatory process. Can you elaborate on that?
Happily. Many people look at the universe around us and refer back to the Big Bang and say, well, creation happened some 15 billion years ago with the Big Bang, and since then, all that's happened essentially is that the cosmic furniture has been rearranged. We've got planets now, and we've got people and so on, but the genuine act of creation happened some 15 billion years in the past. There's another view that's now emerging with quantum physics and such, the new physics, and that is the idea that creation has been going on all this time.
Yes.
That the fact of me sitting here right now, the fact of this table here, each object that exists, whether a living object or a seemingly inanimate object, is a continuing act of creation. And not only material reality, but the fabric of space and time that holds that reality. The whole of the universe is coming into existence. It's being lifted up in a symphony of creation at each moment. Now that transforms what we see from dead matter and empty space into a living field.
Yeah.
And a new sense of reverence, a new sense of aliveness begins to come back into the universe that's been bleached out by the industrial era.
I know when I was younger, in receiving religious education, the rabbi once said to me that, well, in the old days, God used to talk to people, but not anymore. And this view seems to be suggesting the immanence of God, moment by moment, sort of like the Hindu notion of Vishnu sustaining the universe as he dreams.
Indeed, that we live in this ocean of this deep ocean of from Star Wars, well, if you want to call it the life force.
Yes.
There are all these names for it, but we live and we are that ocean of life energy made manifest.
Duane, we've covered quite a journey here from sort of an evolutionary, psycho-historical view of humanity and an economic, political, social analysis to something that must seem quite parallel to a universal mysticism. And I think it's only fair for me to ask you to talk a little bit about your own journey in exploring the future evolution of consciousness and culture.
This is a difficult to answer, but basically, I spent, 10, 15 years of meditation before coming to the views of the coevolution of consciousness and culture that I now have. And it was out of an intensive a half year of meditation, essentially, that the book Awakening Earth emerged in 1978. And since then, I've been a servant to that process, developing this book. But really, the book itself was a gift from the universe. I can't really take credit for it. It was, I feel that, and Pythagoras, this ancient mathematician, said that if we're really present, we can tune in to let's say, the architecture, the deep architecture of the universe. And I feel that in meditation, we can know the evolutionary potentials of the universe by tuning into the deep architecture and the deep knowledge that's already embedded in the structure of the universe. So that is sort of the origins of this book and much of my thinking.
You write very eloquently about how you focused in meditation for a period of months, just holding in your mind that question, what is the future of humanity, and without allowing your mind to waver on the question. And it was out of that type of, I guess I would call it concentration, that the answer emerged from you with such force that now, over a decade later, you can look back and say it happened in 1978, and I'm still reverberating with the power of it. It reminds me of the state of consciousness that R.M. Buck wrote about in his book Cosmic Consciousness, a state that seems to be often underlying many of the great inventions and advancements of humanity.
Buck is indeed an important person in my own learning. He talking about cosmic consciousness, the consciousness of the cosmos. That if I am actually connected with this deep life force, which is a field of awareness, and if that field of awareness is generating this entire cosmos in which we live, then to the extent that I let go of my limited identity and open up to the spaciousness of this larger universe, this larger cosmos, that is the consciousness of the cosmos I'm experiencing, or cosmic consciousness.
Yes.
Very straightforward in that sense.
And you seem to be a representative of the cosmos, sitting before us now, pointing the way to the future of humanity, saying there are many enormous challenges that we must face, and yet, if I hear you right, and even more than hear you, just looking at the radiance of your face, I sense the message is that there will be resources, external and internal, that will be at least sufficient for us to meet those challenges.
Indeed. I feel the universe is extraordinarily purposeful. There's a very, very high level of design intelligence that's gone into creating us here. American Indians talk about 3 miracles, if I may just describe those. The first miracle is that anything exists at all. The second miracle is that living things exist. Trees, plants, animals, and so on. The third miracle is that living things exist that know they're here. Now, we tend to focus on the third miracle. We say, I'm that living thing that knows it's here. And we forget about the first miracle, that anything exists at all. Now, the fact that anything exists at all is an extraordinary act of creation, of deep design intelligence by this life force. And I think this life force intends our purposeful evolution in freedom towards a compassionate, forgiving, creative species civilization and individuals.
You were a social scientist at the same time, and I think many in the profession of social science would say that these kinds of ideas are outside the realm of science and social science, and yet they came to you, I think, through your concerns as a social scientist, and I almost wonder if you might not respond, and I don't mean in an arrogant way, so I'm going to say it for you, that those who would suggest that this kind of visioning and this kind of an intuition and perhaps even mysticism is outside of science, perhaps that's a teenage view of science.
Oh, indeed. I think so. I think these are normal abilities. These are normal potentials. They're just built into the human equipment, and we have yet to really evolve mature enough to really unfold those potentials very fully for ourselves. But I think it's interesting. Until a generation ago, who would have guessed that you could send pictures through the air, as we do with television? Who would have guessed that you could take 15 pounds of this metal called plutonium, jam it together real hard, and create an atomic bomb? Who would have guessed you could take a little bit of silicon sand and create what we now know as a computer chip and store a whole library on there? There are all of these potentials in the material world that are reflected as well in potentials that we have in this inner world. Yeah.
So you seem to be saying that as we evolve as a species and move into a new era, that we will find inside of our own consciousness discoveries and wonders and possibilities that are as great as the discoveries that we've seen in the physical world, say, in the last 100 years.
Yes, absolutely.
That the new frontier is within us, and that we are being challenged to discover that frontier by virtue of the crises.
Exactly. They mirror one another. The frontier is both within us and outside of us. And these two frontiers evolve together. And right now we're facing an external crisis that's reflecting back to us the need to evolve internally. And as we do that, we will then change the external world and culture in which we live. So we're sort of laddering up the evolutionary process.
And moving into our adulthood as a species.
Moving into our adulthood, yes.
And as adults, I can say, I guess that means we take responsibility for ourselves and responsibility for our own potentialities.
Indeed.
As well. Well, Duane Elgin, this has been so exciting. I look at you and I see a new kind of scientist, almost a new kind of person. And 20 years ago, you published this remarkable book, Changing Images of Man, in which you forecast even this, that we were, as a species, going to discover that when we ask ourselves, who are we would find something totally new. And I see that in your recent work, you're continuing, yet again, to point the way. It's such a pleasure to be with you, Duane.
You're very generous. Thank you. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Well, thank you so much for being with me.
My pleasure.
And thank you for being with us. New Thinking Aloud is presented by the California Institute for Human Science, a fully accredited university offering distant learning graduate degrees that focus on mind, body, and spirit. The topics that we cover here. We are particularly excited to announce new degrees emphasizing parapsychology and the paranormal. Visit their website at cihs.edu. You can now download all 9 copies of the New Thinking Aloud magazine for free, or order beautiful printed copies. Go to newthinkingaloud.org.
Book 4 in the New Thinking Aloud dialogue series is Charles T. Tart, 70 Years of Exploring Consciousness and Parapsychology, now available on Amazon.
For early access to our videos and live stream events, sign up for our free weekly newsletter at newthinkingaloud.org.